This is my Uncle Felix. He is a keen game shooter, doing tweeds on pheasants on loads of acres of farmland. He's also a philanthropist, and a few years ago, he was invited to a royal shoot just outside of London. Felix packed up all of his guns, all of his cartridges, in his grey Samsonite suitcase, jumped on the Northern Line on his way to Waterloo Station. Fast forward, he made it off the tube onto the train and fell asleep. Felix was then roughly woken up by a swarm of armed police. At some point between taking the Northern Line and passing through the gates of Waterloo Station, some camera, some technology, some sensor identified his suitcase full of weaponry. Although my great-uncle's intentions were to enjoy freshly cooked pheasant for dinner, transport police and the Met Police saw him as a threat. Felix obviously ends up missing the shoot, was taken to a police station, basically detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. But what makes me interested in this story is the how. How did the platform barriers and CCTV cameras identify his suitcase? And how far into his journey did they find out? How many times do you think you were captured on CCTV on one of the 15,500 cameras by TfL on your way into the office today? Surveillance and security are key topics in the debate and development of smart cities. But let's start with a definition. What makes a city smart? Smart cities are where everyday technologies are embedded with sensors to monitor the world around them. Through things like apps, algorithms, and artificial intelligence, new technology has the potential to reduce congestion, reduce crime, restore democracy, and even make government services more accessible. My digital dream is that we'll have smart cities all over the world that can help improve the lives of millions of citizens. But we need to be aware of the rationale behind our urban future, so we can ensure that the good consequences of smart cities outweigh the bad. The UN predicts that 68% of the world's population will live in key urban areas by 2050. And here in the UK, 83% of our population already live in these urban areas. Key trends in urbanization and technology are the driving forces behind smart cities, meaning that most of you in this room will live in one. And remember, cities are the concentrations of our population. So our future, your future, is closely linked to that of cities. The topic of smart cities felt and still feels huge to me. So to wrangle all of my thoughts and all the knowledge I've consumed, we can look at smart cities under 3 defining features, each with their own array of good and bad consequences. These features are consumption, convenience, and security. Let's talk about the first one, consumption. Cities are responsible for over 2/3 of the world's energy consumption. And sustainability is something we should all care about, right? Or if you don't, you really should start now. COP26 is happening right now. So when smart cities are perfectly positioned to play a pivotal role in providing the infrastructure for smart power to reduce our congestion, it makes sense as why we should utilize the technology underpinning them. Alphabet's Sidewalk Labs, part of Google, looked at a part of the city of Toronto as an example smart city. In the proposed plans, the area of focus, Quayside, looked at how they could integrate energy efficiency technologies to decrease the burden placed on the grid. So when Toronto gets hit by a snowstorm this winter, the embedded weather sensors would heat up and melt the snow. And as a Canadian, I think this is really cool. By incorporating smart power into urban design, Quayside's neighborhood emissions were predicted to be reduced by 75%. But we don't get that much snow in the UK, you might think, and that's totally true. Why would we spend taxpayers' money on heated sidewalks, pavements when we could direct that energy elsewhere? Perhaps smart cities in the UK would focus on things like smart power and renewable energy reserves, or things like a fuel crisis. It makes sense as why smart cities could lend us a better way to monitor and manage our resources. But there can be downsides to controlling our energy. For example, British Gas promotes their smart homes with Hive devices, where you can control your energy using your mobile phone. Although Hive devices were found to help reduce household energy consumption, issues were raised about all the generated data. One hacker was able to access the Hive device and obtain the homeowner's address and their holiday dates, essentially making that smart home a prime target for burglary. We need to consider all that connectivity and behavioral insights that the tech giants or governments could collect from our smart homes and cities. So how does society balance smart power and green objectives as opposed to the risks of data mining and privacy? Next, let's talk about convenience. In 2016, researchers at MIT created intelligent intersections that would allow for self-driving cars to merge seamlessly and not stop at the lights. Sitting in traffic would basically become a thing of the past. The idea is that the sensors on the cars would communicate with each other and remain at safe distances rather than stopping. The intelligent intersections could allow for double as much traffic on the roads and faster speeds, so shortening our commute times too. What would you do with that extra time saved in the morning from a shorter commute? I'm sure many of us would enjoy that extra time to hit snooze, right? MIT intended to create a solution that would benefit citizens with reduced congestion and faster travel speeds. However, MIT completely forgot one thing from their simulations and mathematical models: pedestrians. Their city streets showed no signs of life outside of the streamlined roads. By optimizing one aspect of our urban life, we often have to restrict another. Imagine going shopping down Oxford Street in central London with a 4-lane highway speeding down the middle of it. Not exactly my ideal city or shopping experience. Not to mention the UK government considering delaying the implementation of smart highways because of safety concerns. In introducing things like intelligent intersections and smart roads and highways, the unintended consequences have to be accounted for. So, how do we balance roads and cars as opposed to people and walkability? The final pillar of smart cities: security. The distinction between smart cities and safe cities is blurred. But increasingly, smart is becoming a euphemism for surveillance. Cities in over 50 countries across the world have deployed surveillance technologies powered by things like data mining, facial recognition, and AI. Camera-ridden smart cities can use tools like real-time data and things like predictive policing. This can help officers be more agile in their pursuit and coordinate responses with central command. In smart cities, police services can better connect with citizens, strengthen relationships with wider communities, and often significantly reduce crime. There can be real benefits gained from the insights into how people use public spaces and the increased security. But when the UK implemented real-time facial recognition in policing, the trials showed that less than 20% of their identifications were correct. In trying to implement digital technology solutions, they are a lot easier to sign off and implement rather than addressing generations of economic and social neglect and the systematic underfunding of our local councils and the social care system. Surveillance doesn't only misidentify criminals, though. What about the risks of omnipresent government surveillance and how that might suppress opposition? In some smart city designs, there have been concerns about the ability to shut down entire cities with one kill switch. IBM even wrote in their operations manual for the future smart city about minimizing disruption among citizens. What types of disruption? Protests? Or like using smart city technology to predict which streets will require the most armed, militarized police to suppress our right to protest. Surveillance changes the relationship between people and the spaces they live in. So how do we balance a surveillance state as opposed to our freedom and transparency about our data? I've spoken to you about the good and bad consequences of smart cities, but I'd like to leave you with my digital dream of a smart city, the type of city I'd hope you'd want to live in. Not one of consumption, but a smart city that is learning, a city that is adaptive and learns from our energy consumption to get the best out of our cities and resources. Not one of convenience, but of viability. Can the urban solutions be delivered to do what we intend them to do? This means considering business viability alongside public interest. So obviously, no street plans that don't include pedestrians. And finally, not a surveillance state, but a smart city that is managed. A smart city with democracy, governance, and safeguards for our human rights. So obviously, no citywide kill switches. But if we're to truly design smart cities that correspond to the conditions of our lives, we need to ask ourselves questions of provenance to reach our digital dream. What is the role of individuals, communities, governments, and tech giants in the development and implementation of our future smart cities? My digital dream is that we'll have more smart cities all over the world and help improve the lives for millions of citizens and help our planet. Smart cities with more good consequences than bad. So, let's embrace them, shape them, for the best urban future for everyone. Thank you.